All right, you have said openly, especially in this book, Crazy for God, that you have remorse over basically being one of the key founders of the Christian right, and you had a strong role on that. I guess the question is for you, you're still a Christian. What do you believe today, and what do you think, this is the last question, what's the hope for America? If Christians to live out Christianity as we believe it to be.
I mean, the hope for this country from a Christian's point of view is that we reconnect with what Christian evangelism always has been, which is to help those in need and reach out to them. It's not a coincidence that the first hospitals, as we know them in terms of medicine, were begun by monks in the 4th century. And the hope is that Christians will focus on what it means to be a Christian, which is to follow and imitate Jesus Christ, and not on what it means to try to win the next election for someone who says they're a Christian for political purposes, the way George W. Bush did, for instance.
And what does it mean to live like Jesus Christ, or to practice Christianity like Jesus?
Well, I'm not the person to say. I don't claim to do it.
How do you do it? You try to do it.
Yeah, but I think in a practical sense, for me personally, it's to be the father to my children and the grandfather to my grandchildren that I can be. It's to care for those that I come into contact with, try to do the kind thing on an individual level, and give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to not hastening to judgment when it comes to issues such as gay rights and these other things. It's really looking at the teaching of Jesus Christ. When the woman taken in adultery is brought to him, they said, "Shall we stone her to death?" He looks at everybody and says, "Who amongst you has committed no sins?" If you take the Bible seriously,
let him cast the first stone.
Yeah, and actually, if you take the Bible seriously, and you take Christian tradition seriously, which I do, there was actually one person there who had never sinned, who could have stoned her legitimately if you take that, and that was Jesus Christ. And instead he broke the Old Testament law, and he said, "I don't care what the law says. The rule for me is mercy and compassion."
Forgiveness.
And forgiveness, and that's what I'm going to extend. Now, if that became the image of Christianity when it comes to issues that confront us, you would have a completely different view of the gospel in this country than we do now.
Loving human beings.
Yeah, loving human beings and caring for them. And instead, what it is it's about the winning the next election, and it's about unifying around principles of hatred. Who do we hate today? Well, we used to hate the communists, but they're gone, so now we hate gays, we hate Mexicans, we hate immigrants. You know, the racism and latent racism is just under the surface. A lot of the reaction to Barack Obama is not about politics, because after all, Barack Obama is actually someone who had an experience of coming to Christ, and he talks about it. It's really more to do with his race. And so, you know, it's to be honest about these things and realize that the religious right has no standing, as it were, to judge anybody, let alone hold itself up as an example that's going to lead us toward a better place. I think it's the opposite. I think the religious right's actually very dangerous, and I think it's much more akin to a movement like the Taliban than it is to anything remotely Christian. It's trying to impose a certain type of political moral order and use whatever means possible to do that.
And so the way that you live your life is just be the best human being you can, care for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think essentially, you know, if you're an architect, you're trying to build buildings in which people are treated like human beings, where the scale and the space and the light doesn't wind up looking like most American high schools, which are like prisons. You know, if you're a doctor, you're not always chasing the buck, and you're taking care of Medicaid patients and being willing to earn less. You know, if you're a lawyer, you're looking out for the rights of the individual. If you're a politician, you're trying to tell the truth even if you're making compromises. If you're a writer like I am, you try to write books that tell the truth to the best of your ability about the subject you're writing about. It isn't rocket science, and there's nothing complicated about it, but there's no silver bullet here. It isn't a question of getting the right person in the White House, and it's a question of caring for human beings on an individual basis. That, to me, is what Christianity is, and that's, to me, is the only reason it's around 2,000 years later, because there were enough people who did that in spite of all the nutcases who enslaved people, buggered choir boys, did whatever it was they were doing. There were enough other people who were caring for orphans and widows, building hospitals, looking out for the needy, so that there's some reputation left. And if we allow the religious right to hijack what's left of Christianity in America and turn it into this political issue, then the biggest person or thing that will suffer is the image of what Christianity is, far more than even the country will. And I think, therefore, as a Christian, there's all the reason in the world to stand against this and to look at someone like Sarah Palin and these right-wing commentators who identify themselves only by what they are against and who they hate, and say, this isn't the way we want to go.
This was plain wrong.
It's plain wrong.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks.